How did the Songhai Empire, the largest empire in Africa founded by an African people, disappear? How could such a vast, wealthy, and feared empire fall in a single battle? Welcome to Collapse, where giants fall. Today, we will delve into the brutal end of the greatest indigenous African empire in history, the Songhai, a colossus that reigned over the Sahel, controlled trans-Saharan trade, and made its rivals tremble, until the day everything changed. But before embarking on a new adventure, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. Thank you, and have a great journey. At the juncture of the Middle Ages and the modern era, while Europe slowly recovers from the Black Death and begins its great maritime expeditions, West Africa experiences the height of powerful empires prospering through trans-Saharan trade. While some European powers seek new routes to Asia, the Sahelian kingdoms expand around the Niger River and strategic areas across the desert. These empires share a flourishing economic system based on the exchange of gold, salt, slaves, and agricultural products like cola nuts, thereby linking sub-Saharan Africa to the Mediterranean basin. Three major entities particularly mark this period in West Africa: the Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, and finally, the Songhai Empire. Each rises to the rank of a regional power in turn and leaves a profound imprint on cultural, political, and religious levels. The Ghana Empire, active from the 8th century, controls vital caravan routes, benefiting from the strong demand for gold in the Arab Muslim world. Later, the Mali Empire inherits this network and increases its influence, notably under the legendary reign of Mansa Musa in the 14th century. Finally, the Songhai, which becomes the direct heir of these great traditions, imposes its domination over an even larger area, relying on military power and the wealth accumulated over decades. West Africa at that time is not a uniform territory. It consists of coastal kingdoms, like those of the Senegambia, that maintain contacts with Portuguese navigators, and powerful Sahelian states, of which the Songhai is the most imposing. The coastal countries gradually open to Atlantic trade, while the interior empires still rely on the old caravan routes. Camel caravans cross the Sahara, linking Gao, Timbuktu, or Djenne to the cities of the Maghreb and Egypt. On these routes, not only goods circulate, but also ideas, know-how, and religious practices, making the region a cultural crossroads. The system of trans-Saharan routes relies on the control of water points, the use of seasoned guides, and the existence of trade relays. Salt, mainly extracted from Taghaza or Tagatsa in present-day northern Mali, is among the essential goods for food preservation and is traded nearly at the price of gold in some areas. Slaves, captured during conflicts or purchased in specialized markets, become essential labor in agriculture or gold mines. Finally, the cola nut, highly appreciated for its stimulating virtues, completes this picture where the incessant flow of goods weaves strong ties across the continent. The Songhai has its roots in the Sahelian region of West Africa, where the Niger River traces immense fertile loops through semi-arid lands. Over the centuries, these bends of the Niger have shaped the economic and political life of many populations, who have established villages and then dynamic cities there. It is precisely in this area, around the city of Gao, that the first foundations are laid for what will become one of the greatest empires on the African continent. Gao in the beginning was just a small settlement sustained by fishing, subsistence agriculture, and river commerce. It developed in a sometimes hostile environment due to climatic variations and the harshness of the Sahel. However, this locality has a major asset: its direct access to the Niger River. As a major navigable waterway, the Niger connects several regions of West Africa and facilitates the exchange of various goods, such as cereals, skins, fabrics, and later, salt and gold. Over time, Gao became a crossroads of cultural exchanges. The Songhai language predominates, but various Sahelian languages can also be heard, and later, Arabic, the language of Islam and trans-Saharan trade. The legendary origins of the Songhai trace back to local groups who supposedly unified several clans around Gao. The Songhai, Zarma, and other related communities gradually settled on the banks of the Niger. Oral traditions speak of charismatic leaders, sometimes endowed with spiritual power, capable of uniting scattered tribes under a single banner. Among the ancestral stories, there are tales of the Dia dynasty, considered by many historians as the first ruling dynasty over Gao. Although scarcely documented in written sources, it remains crucial in the initial structuring of power, laying the foundations for centralized authority. Over generations, the dynastic torch passed from the Dia to the Sani, or Sunni. The latter emerged in a context of commercial boom and regional rivalries. The Sani, known especially through famous figures from the 15th century onwards, likely relied on a political system combining local traditions and external influences. They sometimes drew inspiration from administrative models seen among their more powerful neighbors, notably the Mali Empire. At its height, the latter dominated most of West Africa and controlled strategic trade routes. For a long time, the city of Gao and its leaders maintained ambiguous relations with Mali, ranging from partial vassalage to fierce independence, depending on military circumstances or marital alliances of the time. Historians agree that during one period, Songhai had to recognize Mali's suzerainty. This situation did not make Gao powerless. A status of vassalage could be a way to benefit from the protection and networks of the Mali Empire while maintaining a certain degree of autonomy. But when Mali began to decline due to internal disputes and difficulties in managing its vast territory, the Songhai king seized the opportunity to assert complete independence. In the 14th century, there is a noticeable progressive strengthening of Gao. The city increased its influence over neighboring regions, consolidated ties with trans-Saharan traders, and developed a more structured army. In this dynamic, the early kings of the Sani dynasty sought to secure the major caravan routes crossing the desert to North Africa. The caravans then transported valuable goods: salt extracted from the Taghaza mines, gold gathered further south, kola nuts, skins, and also slaves. Ensuring the protection of these routes while imposing taxes on merchants represented a considerable source of revenue for Gao. To achieve this, the Songhai rulers sent their warriors on targeted military campaigns. The goal was not necessarily to seize large territories at first, but rather to control strategic points, a few key cities, oases, and river crossings. Written sources from this period are rare. However, testimonies from Arab explorers like Ibn Battuta, who traveled to Mali in the 14th century, or Al-Omari, sometimes reference the region of Gao. They describe it as a hub of exchange, where caravans loaded with salt, boats on the Niger River, and bustling markets can be found. Such accounts, even if brief, confirm Gao's growing role in regional trade. They also reveal the gradual introduction of Islam, brought by merchants and certain dignitaries coming from the north. This religion remains a minority among the Songhai population, who are more attached to ancestral cults and ritual practices passed down by their ancestors. Initially, Islam takes hold mainly among the merchant elites and court circles, as they seek to integrate into the larger Islamic commercial network. Rural populations largely retain their traditional beliefs, and religious coexistence is not without its frictions. Leaders wishing to adopt Islam for its international prestige must accommodate local cults at the risk of inciting revolts. A notable fact of this era is the emergence of a literate Muslim elite, which preserves bits of information about the political life of Gao in writings or chronicles. Even though these documents remain fragmentary, they provide a glimpse of alliances formed between the Songhai kings and scholars, sometimes trained in Timbuktu or Djenne. They also discuss the establishment of embryonic political structures, tax collection, the formation of a regular army, and the administration of justice according to local principles mixed with Islamic influences. All this evolution lays the groundwork for the tremendous expansion that will occur later when the strengthened Sunni dynasty sets out to conquer the major cities of the Sahel. In the mid-15th century, while West Africa is already marked by the legacy of the great empires of Ghana and Mali, a figure emerges who is destined to transform the region profoundly, Sunni Ali Ber, whose reign spans from 1464 to 1492. When he comes to power in 1464, Sunni Ali inherits a still modest Songhai kingdom centered around Gao and its surroundings. Although previous dynasties had laid the foundation for local authority, effective control over caravan routes remains partial. Sunni Ali, endowed with exceptional military talent, quickly realizes the necessity to dominate both the riverine and overland routes to establish himself as the major power in the region. He then organizes a disciplined army, capable of moving rapidly along the Niger River and across the Sahel, exploiting the versatility of a river fleet and an elite cavalry. In collective memory, Sunni Ali embodies the archetype of the conqueror, courageous, sometimes ruthless, but also an exceptional strategist. Griots, troubadours and oral historians recount numerous battles where his mere name was enough to instill panic in enemy ranks. However, it is not just brute force that enables him to triumph. He knows how to adapt his military setup according to the terrain, sometimes deploying war canoes on the Niger, sometimes heavily armed cavalry regiments on the Sahelian plains. Sunni Ali's first major feat occurred in 1468 with the conquest of Timbuktu, a major intellectual and commercial center, then under the control of the Tuaregs, desert nomads who dominated the trade routes. Rather than sparing the city, Sunni Ali enforces a swift and brutal siege. He expels the local elites, notably the Muslim scholars who had established themselves as a significant authority. Once Timbuktu is subdued, he establishes a strong military presence there, breaking with the relative autonomy previously enjoyed by merchants and scholars. But Sunni Ali does not stop there. In Djenne, a prosperous city located further south on the Niger River, he meets fierce resistance. The city, known for its markets and earthen architecture, holds out for 7 months under siege. Eventually, in 1473, Djenne capitulates. This victory is crucial. By controlling Djenne and Timbuktu, Sunni Ali locks down the routes linking the Sahara Desert to the forested regions of West Africa, where gold mines and the precious kola nut crops are found. With these two cities under his control, Sunni Ali turns his gaze eastward and southward. He then encounters two powerful local forces, the Mossi and the Fulani. The Mossi, formidable horsemen originating from the plains of present-day Burkina Faso, form a series of kingdoms structured around warrior monarchies. For decades, they have been launching incursions into the Sahel, threatening the merchant cities of the Niger. Sunni Ali must repel them to ensure the stability of his new conquests. His troops battle the Mossi in the region of Makina and Yatenga, two strategic territories where shepherds and traders meet. As for the Fulani, they are a nomadic and semi-nomadic people, heavily involved in cattle herding and trade. They are present over vast territories ranging from the Senegal Valley to the banks of the Niger. Some Fulani are Islamized and integrated into trading circuits, while others maintain an ancestral pastoral lifestyle. Sunni Ali fights them not only to secure the Niger River, but also to assert his authority over populations that, due to their mobility, often escape the control of sedentary empires. In the extreme north, he attacks Oualata, a city situated at the gateway to the Sahara, which has long been a transit center for caravans linking North Africa to the Sahel. By taking this city, Sunni Ali strengthens his monopoly over the salt trade, a valuable resource for food preservation and the Sahelian economy. To the southeast, he advances toward the Manding Mountains, lands of the descendants of the former Mali Empire. Here, he confronts the last Malian city-states, further reducing the influence of what was once one of Africa's greatest empires. Finally, he pushes his conquest to Dende, a fertile region located in the south of present-day Niger. This expansion reinforces the southern border of his empire and prevents any attempt at reorganizing Malian forces. In less than 3 decades, Sunni Ali Ber transformed Songhai into an indispensable power. However, this expansion relies on strict military control and a brutal policy towards conquered populations. These successive victories inspire both admiration and fear. Now, no city, whether protected by walls or its religious renown, seems out of reach of this conqueror determined to unite the region under his banner. To administer his growing empire, Sunni Ali establishes a structure resolutely focused on military power. He relies on a circle of loyal generals and officers, to whom he grants authority over conquered provinces or cities. This form of decentralization, however, remains closely monitored. The emperor insists on watching for any signs of independence. Local populations are thus forced either to serve in the army or to pay tributes meant to support the military machine. While this method ensures stability and rapid intervention, it often creates tensions, especially in cities with a strong Islamic tradition. Indeed, some accounts report severe repressions. In Timbuktu, for instance, Sunni Ali clashes with the scholarly elite who, until then, enjoyed considerable moral and cultural influence. Arabic sources of the time, though sometimes biased, describe acts of violence against the ulema, Muslim scholars, who refuse to submit. To these scholars, Sunni Ali appears as a brutal leader, disrespectful of Islamic laws. The chronicles of Timbuktu, written later, even evoke a period of oppression marked by executions and confiscations of property. Sunni Ali's ambivalence towards Islam fuels many contrasting accounts. On one side, he encourages Muslim practice in certain segments of society, as he understands the political and diplomatic utility of being recognized by North African states and merchants. On the other side, he maintains the traditional cults of his ancestors and the vast majority of the Songhai population, who remain attached to animist rites. This duality does not please the Muslim religious elite, who believe a sovereign should represent Islamic orthodoxy without compromise. According to oral tradition, Sunni Ali is also surrounded by mystical advisors, practitioners of esoteric practices, which feeds the rumor of a wizard king. Whether true or exaggerated, these allegations widen the gap between Sunni Ali and the orthodox circles of Timbuktu and Djenne. Beyond his controversial religious policy, Sunni Ali decisively contributed to the economic development of the region. Aware of the immense potential of trans-Saharan trade, he dedicated significant resources to securing caravan routes. He established a system of taxes. Any merchant crossing territories under Songhai control had to pay tolls. At the same time, he oversaw the construction and maintenance of garrison posts along strategic routes in order to protect caravans from bandits and attacks from neighboring states. Additionally, he invested in the development of a river fleet, an asset that distinguished Songhai from many other kingdoms in the region. Thanks to an armada of canoes and warboats, the empire controlled traffic on the Niger River, reducing travel time between Gao, Timbuktu, and Djenne. This mastery of the river boosted internal trade and reinforced the role of the Niger as a highway of the time. Goods like gold, salt, cola nuts, and cereals circulated more easily, ensuring substantial income for the royal treasury. His death in 1492 also contributed to shaping a myth. Officially, Sunni Ali is said to have drowned in the Niger River while returning from a military campaign. Other versions suggest an assassination disguised as an accident. Many griots speak of a plot within the ruling family itself. Some members of the Songhai elite deemed it necessary to eliminate him to impose a succession more in line with rigorous Islam, or simply to gain power more quickly. In any case, the tragic end of Sunni Ali adds a legendary dimension to his character, already shrouded in mystery. At the time of Sunni Ali's death, the Songhai Empire had become the dominant force in West Africa. In less than 30 years, this conquering leader had incorporated Timbuktu, Djenne, and many other territories, thus ensuring Gao a prosperity it had never dreamed of. He left behind a much more centralized state, organized around a regular army, a river fleet, and a fiscal administration geared towards enrichment. However, not everything is harmonious. The repression against the ulama and his dual approach to religion sowed discord within society. When Sunni Ali disappeared in 1492, the Songhai Empire faced a major challenge. Who among the heirs and generals would manage to maintain the cohesion of a rapidly expanded territory? The first months following the conqueror's death were marked by power struggles between the Sunni dynasty and various claimants. It is in this context that a talented figure emerged, Askia Muhammad I, also known as Askia Muhammad. Determined and a shrewd strategist, he seized the throne in 1493 by overthrowing Sunni Ali's son. Soon, he would govern the Songhai Empire with a firm hand while presenting himself as the champion of Islam, thus contrasting with his predecessor's religious ambivalence. Askia Muhammad justified his coup by waving the banner of the true faith against the paganism he attributed to Sunni Ali and his immediate successors. In the chronicles, Sunni Ali is often described as a sovereign who tolerated and practiced traditional rites, which had earned him the hostility of some Muslim elites. Askia Muhammad, on the other hand, surrounded himself with religious advisors and ulama to demonstrate the spiritual legitimacy of his revolt. He immediately presented himself as the defender of Islamic law, a crucial point for gaining the support of scholars and merchants, numerous in centers such as Timbuktu or Djenne. With this support, he quickly established his authority while purging the army and administration of the most loyal elements to the former Sunni dynasty. Upon ascending the throne, Askia Muhammad undertakes a profound reform of the empire's structure. To efficiently manage a vast territory, he establishes a decentralized provincial system. The country is then divided into several administrative regions, each under the authority of governors or special officers. They are sometimes referred to by the titles of Fari or Khoi, each responsible for maintaining order and collecting taxes in their province. This organization allows for both enhanced control from the capital Gao and some flexibility concerning distant regions. In reality, this decentralization is never total, as officials remain appointed and dismissed by the emperor, thus ensuring the supremacy of central power. At the same time, Askia Muhammad perfects the military legacy of Sunni Ali. He maintains a powerful land and river force, aware of the strategic importance of the Niger River for trade and rapid troop movements. Garrisons are better organized. A military leader is designated in each sensitive area, responsible for defending caravan routes and preventing local rebellions. This army, the keystone of the empire, serves as the armed force of a policy that seeks to protect commerce as much as it seeks to deter independence aspirations. The first target for Askia Muhammad is Mali, the former empire that, although declining, still holds symbolic aura and influence over certain Sahel regions. Between 1496 and 1500, he conducts a series of military campaigns against the last Malian strongholds. His army marches on Niani, the former imperial capital, and captures it. This victory marks the definitive end of Malian hegemony and reduces its territory to a mere residual zone. Henceforth, it is the Songhai Empire that dictates the law on the gold and salt routes. But Askia Muhammad does not stop at this conquest. He wants to assert his power against the Mossi kingdoms, located to the south of his empire, in present-day Burkina Faso. These formidable warriors, masters of cavalry, form a group of independent kingdoms that threaten the Songhai borders. Unlike Sunni Ali, who merely repelled their incursions, Askia decides to attack them directly. Between 1498 and 1500, he launches an offensive against Yatenga and Ouagadougou, two of the most powerful Mossi kingdoms. While he does not manage to completely subdue them, he significantly curtails their raids and imposes Songhai authority over the Sahelian margins. Then, between 1504 and 1505, he turns east and engages in a campaign against the Hausa city-states. Located in present-day northern Nigeria, these cities, such as Kano, Zaria, and Katsina, are powerful commercial centers linking West Africa to the Lake Chad Basin. Their integration into the Songhai Empire opens up new economic opportunities and strengthens control over trans-Saharan trade. Further north, another threat hangs over the empire: the Tuaregs. This Berber people, masters of the desert, control several strategic caravan routes connecting Songhai to Maghreb markets. The Tuaregs are seasoned nomads, organized in confederations, who live off the trade of salt, gold, and slaves. However, their independence and ability to strike quickly and powerfully make them a constant danger. Between 1515 and 1517, Askia Muhammad leads a campaign to secure Agadez, a key caravan city in the north of present-day Niger. By integrating it into the empire, he strengthens his grip on Saharan trade. At that time, salt is a resource as precious as gold. It is extracted from the mines of Taghaza, located in the desert north of present-day Mali. These mines, operated by slaves, are vital for the Songhai economy. Aware of their importance, Askia Muhammad ensures their total control, thus guaranteeing a stable source of income for his empire. Finally, between 1520 and 1525, he attempts to extend his influence to Kanem Bornu, a vast kingdom centered around Lake Chad. Kanem Bornu is one of the oldest states in the region, formed by a Muslim dynasty ruling over a territory that includes parts of present-day Chad, Niger, and Nigeria. Powerful and well-organized, it poses a formidable rival to Songhai. Askia Muhammad launches a military campaign against its leaders, hoping to subdue this region and control the routes linking West Africa to the Nile Valley. But this time, his ambition meets its limits. Although his forces defeat some local armies, he fails to establish lasting dominance over Kanem-Bornu. As his reign draws to a close in 1528, the Songhai Empire is larger and more structured than ever. Yet, behind this apparent power, new challenges loom. Because if conquering an empire is one thing, maintaining it is another. In terms of religion, Askia Muhammad steers the Songhai Empire towards a path more aligned with Orthodox Islam. He builds new mosques, funds the maintenance and expansion of madrasas, Quranic schools, and encourages the settlement of scholars in major cities. His court hosts jurists trained in Timbuktu or Djenne, as well as scholars from North Africa and the Middle East. This policy attracts many scholars and merchants, bolstering Songhai's reputation as an intellectual center. Timbuktu, already famous due to its renowned Sankore University, experiences unprecedented vibrancy under Askia Muhammad. Manuscripts are exchanged, religious debates flourish, and knowledge spreads throughout the Sahel region. A significant event in Askia Muhammad's reign occurs between 1496 and 1498. He undertakes the pilgrimage to Mecca, a perilous journey that takes him across the desert, then through Egypt to the holy sites of Islam. Accounts note that he travels with an impressive caravan loaded with sumptuous gifts, gold, precious fabrics, animals, and other luxury goods intended to impress his hosts. Like Mansa Musa, the emperor of Mali a century earlier, Askia Muhammad uses this pilgrimage as a diplomatic act. He establishes contacts with regional Muslim powers, the Mamluks of Egypt, the notables of the Hejaz, and even merchants from the Ottoman Empire. Chroniclers highlight the impact of Askia Muhammad's generosity during this journey. He distributes alms to the poor and offers rich presents to influential figures, thereby securing a solid reputation for piety and munificence. As a sign of respect, the Abbasid Caliph of Cairo, whose religious authority is claimed to be universal in the Islamic world, bestows upon him the honorary title of Caliph of Sudan. Upon his return, Askia Muhammad is welcomed as a hero by the population of Gao. Lavish ceremonies are organized to celebrate this sovereign, who, although not recognized by the entire Ummah, that is, the Muslim community, nonetheless enjoys unparalleled prestige throughout West Africa. Thanks to this religious legitimization and the political stability he imposes, Askia Muhammad fosters tremendous economic growth. The caravan routes, linking the salt of Tagaza and the gold of Bambouk to the Maghreb and even Europe, become a vital axis for the empire. Tuareg, Arab, and even some European merchants passing through negotiate directly with the Songhai authorities, who are aware of the strategic value of their products. The revenues from trade finance, the construction of infrastructure, the remuneration of troops, and the maintenance of major cities. Timbuktu, Djenne, and Gao are transformed into centers of intellectual excellence. In Timbuktu, the Sankore University reaches its zenith. Scholars teach Islamic law, theology, mathematics, and even astronomy. Thousands of manuscripts, both copied and imported, enrich family and institutional libraries, testifying to the cultural openness of the empire. Djenne, for its part, remains a major commercial center, renowned for its markets, offering diverse goods. Gao, the capital, hosts the imperial court and becomes the showcase of power. This is where major diplomatic receptions are held. and it is also where decisions that shape the future of all Songhai are made. However, Askia Muhammad's greatness does not shield him from the ravages of old age and family rivalries. Gradually, he suffers from blindness, which prevents him from participating in public affairs with the same energy. Tensions emerge between his sons and some of his loyal advisors, who see the emperor's loss of sight as a sign of decline. The court of Gao, once united under the command of an undisputed leader, becomes divided over the question of succession. Finally, in 1528, one of his sons, Askia Musa, dethrones him. The chronicles describe a relatively swift overthrow, orchestrated by the princes and palace elite, who believe the weakened sovereign can no longer fully perform his duties. The former emperor, already aged, lives a few more years in semi-exile, far from the pomp and splendor he once was so accustomed to. Despite this inglorious end, Askia Muhammad leaves behind a considerable legacy. His reign marks the zenith of the Songhai Empire, not only in terms of territorial expansion, but also in intellectual and cultural influence. He managed to transform the empire into a power recognized throughout the Muslim world, thus paving the way for an era of prosperity that would bring renown to the region for several generations. When the Songhai Empire reaches its peak, particularly under the Askia dynasty at the turn of the 16th century, it stands as one of the most influential centers of civilization in West Africa. Its reputation crosses the Sahara and reaches the Maghreb and the Orient. To understand what makes this vast entity strong, one must delve into its political and social organization, its prosperous economic system, and its vibrant cultural life. The Songhai society is characterized by a clear hierarchy, at the top of which is the emperor, or Askia, exercising supreme authority. Surrounding him are several categories. The nobles and military leaders, often from influential lineages, are responsible for enforcing imperial decisions in the provinces, raising troops, and ensuring the security of trade routes. Religious scholars, particularly the ulama, Muslim theologians, and marabouts, healers and spiritual guides, enjoy respected status, especially since Islam has established itself as the official religion. The peasants and craftsmen, ensuring agricultural production and the manufacture of everyday or luxury items. Their role is essential for feeding the population and sustaining commerce. The slaves, constituting a workforce at the disposal of the upper classes, as in many other Sahelian societies of the time, they are employed in domestic and agricultural tasks or in salt and gold mines. The central administration, though powerful, still has to work with local traditional chiefs. In conquered cities or distant regions, the notables retain part of their customary authority to manage daily affairs. The emperor places alongside them trusted administrators, often holding titles like Fari, military leader, or Khoi, governor, who ensure the implementation of decisions and tax collection. This system, both centralized and flexible, allows for order to be maintained over a territory spanning thousands of kilometers, from the Niger Bend to the desert's edges. Since Sunni Ali, and even more under Askia Muhammad II, Islam has become institutionalized within Songhai. The great mosques, like Niger River in Timbuktu or that of Sankore, benefit from imperial support. The Songhai princes find in Islam a powerful, unifying lever that reinforces their legitimacy in the eyes of the region's commercial and intellectual elites. The ulama play a significant political role. They advise the emperor, arbitrate certain conflicts, and provide Quranic education. The marabouts, meanwhile, are renowned for their esoteric knowledge and their ability to heal or protect against evil spirits. One of the keys to Songhai's success lies in its economic wealth, primarily based on two major resources, salt and gold. The former comes largely from the Taghaza mines, located in the north in desert areas. The extraction, dangerous and grueling, is often entrusted to enslaved workers who must dig into the ground to extract blocks of salt. Once the goods are transported by camel caravans, they sell at a high price because salt is essential for food preservation in hot climates. Gold, in turn, is extracted from auriferous regions located further south, notably in Bambouk, today between Mali and Senegal. The deposits attract miners, merchants, and sometimes adventurers in search of fortune. Gold, highly prized in the Arab, Muslim, and European markets, transits via the Niger River or by land to Timbuktu and Gao before crossing the desert. To profit from it, the Songhai authorities establish a system of taxes and tolls. Caravanners must pay a passage fee, which helps finance the military protection of the routes and the functioning of the administration. This economic model, already tested under the Mali Empire, finds its full expression in Songhai, thanks to the efficiency of the administrative machinery established by the Askias. Timbuktu, in particular, is considered the pearl of the Sahel. Located on the edge of the Sahara, it is a convergence point for caravans coming from the Maghreb, exchanging their products, fabrics, weapons, books, spices, for gold and slaves, among other things. Sudanese merchants and those from other regions of West Africa also bring their own goods, like kola or leather. Thus, the city becomes a vast interregional market, where Berbers, Arabs, Songhai, Mande, Fulani, and other ethnic groups coexist. This diversity makes Timbuktu a place of cultural mingling, where one can sometimes hear several languages in the same street. Moreover, the city is renowned for its universities or madrasas, the most famous being Sankore. Arab scholars, often fascinated by the intensity of local intellectual life, describe it as a center of knowledge of international scope. Accounts praise the hospitality of its inhabitants, the beauty of its architecture, and the abundance of its libraries. Manuscripts, copied locally or imported from Cairo and Fez, circulate freely, covering various subjects such as theology, law, literature, medicine, or even astronomy. Several of these works are still preserved today in private Malian collections, testifying to the intellectual flourishing of this period. While merchants and scholars benefit from the fallout of a booming trade, the majority of the population lives off agriculture on the fertile banks of the Niger. Millet, sorghum, and upland rice are cultivated, sometimes vegetables, taking into account the seasons and the river's floods. Artisans excel in weaving, pottery, and metallurgy. Blacksmiths, highly respected in Songhai culture, make agricultural tools, weapons, and everyday utensils. Their know-how is passed down from generation to generation, often within specialized castes. Oral tradition, carried by the griots, or jeli, is an essential pillar of cultural life. These storytellers, poets, and musicians perform at court ceremonies, weddings, and other popular gatherings. Their role is not limited to entertainment. They are the living memory of the empire, reciting heroic epics and guarding dynastic history. Among the Songhai, as in other West African societies, oral transmission is crucial for perpetuating legends, moral values, and local traditions. The great success of Songhai also lies in its openness to the international community. North African sultans, Egyptian merchants, and, later, some Portuguese merchants, establish or strengthen their diplomatic and commercial relations with the empire. This circulation of people and ideas contributes to the cultural richness of the region. Arab accounts emphasize the exoticism of the products found in Gao or Djenne, the quality of the welcome reserved for visitors, and the attraction exerted by the reputation of local universities. In general, when discussing Africa in the Middle Ages, many, internationally, remain unaware of the existence of opulent cities and first-rate intellectual centers. But the example of Songhai at its peak demonstrates how much this part of the world was integrated into the major exchange circuits of the time. Gold, salt, scientific knowledge, and religious insights circulate, shaping a dynamic and cosmopolitan Sahel-Saharan space. In 1528, Askia Muhammad I, weakened by age and blindness, was overthrown by his son Askia Musa. This overthrow marked the beginning of a series of succession conflicts that disrupted the political life of the Songhai. Members of the imperial family, sons, nephews, or grandsons of Askia Muhammad, clashed to seize the throne, often at the cost of fratricidal struggles. Each contender tried to rally to his cause military factions, leaders of distant provinces, or even influential religious dignitaries. Several rulers thus succeeded each other within a few decades, sometimes leaving the empire without clear direction. Some of them reigned briefly before being deposed by a more powerful relative or through a palace scheme. This dynastic instability affected the cohesion of the army and the efficiency of the administration. Provinces, once loyal to a strong emperor, might choose to break away whenever central power wavered. Historians also highlight the rivalry that developed between the military nobility, faithful heirs to the conquests of Sunni Ali and Askia Muhammad, and the religious nobility, supported by some of the ulemas. The throne, in short, became a matter of personal ambitions and ideological conflicts. In chronicles and oral accounts, there are many examples of failed conspiracies at the Gao Palace. An anecdote illustrates this tumultuous atmosphere. It is said that an ambitious general, supported by some high officials, attempted to assassinate the reigning Askia during a religious ceremony. Discovered at the last minute, the group was arrested, and severe repression fell upon the proven or presumed accomplices. Distrust then settled in at court, leading to increased surveillance of officers and religious dignitaries suspected of sympathies for the opposition. Over time, this perpetual suspicion eroded the cohesion of the imperial elite and undermined the effectiveness of the government. At its peak, the Songhai Empire was a mosaic of peoples and territories, whose cohesion relied on a delicate balance. On one hand, the Askia dynasty wished to maintain strong central power to manage taxes, raise troops, and negotiate with foreign trading partners. On the other hand, distant provinces and their traditional leaders often demanded a certain degree of autonomy, citing local peculiarities they did not want to sacrifice. This conflict between centralization and decentralization crystallized in sporadic revolts, particularly in outlying areas like Dendi, located in the southeast of the empire. There, Gao's authority clashed with the ambitions of local leaders seeking to protect their prerogatives. Sometimes, these uprisings remained limited. Other times, they were severe enough to force the emperor to mobilize his army, already preoccupied with ensuring border security. Each intervention was costly in men and resources, fueling a vicious circle where the central administration, in trying to reaffirm its authority, exposed itself to new costs and new criticisms. In the heart of the Sahel, the Songhai Empire remained vulnerable to climatic variations. Droughts and famines, although episodic, regularly destabilized the local economy. When rains were scarce, Agriculture on the Niger banks or in the surrounding plains suffered heavy losses. Harvests diminished, causing price increases and, sometimes, population movements in search of more fertile lands. At the same time, the supply of salt, gold, or other key resources was not immune to logistical or geopolitical challenges. The salt mines of Tagaza, essential to the economy, could see production drop following political unrest in the north or attacks by nomads. Gold, extracted in the auriferous zones of Bambouk, could also become scarce if extraction conditions became complicated or if caravans were threatened. All these tensions ended up weighing on imperial finances: fewer tax revenues, more expenses to secure the roads, and an impoverished rural population demanding more protection. Askia Muhammad Touré's massive conversion to Islam did not put an end to old beliefs. In many regions, rural populations remained attached to animist practices, honoring their local deities and ancestors. The coexistence between state Islam, embodied by the ulamas and marabouts, and these ancestral cults did not occur without creating tensions. The Muslim elites, mainly urban, could consider these practices as idolatry, while peasants saw the religious reforms as an abandonment of their secular traditions. Moreover, the military caste, proud of its heritage of conquerors, did not always appreciate the rise of the ulamas within the power structures. The divergences became more apparent when religious cadres attempted to impose their vision of Islamic law, combating certain behaviors deemed contrary to morality. Sometimes, these educated elites gained the emperor's ear, causing discontent among military leaders jealous of their traditional influence. This competition between the sword and the Quran at the top of the state was not easily resolved and ended up weakening political unity. Beyond internal tensions, the Songhai Empire had to contend with a complex regional environment. Neighboring kingdoms, such as the Mossi, conducted numerous incursions and tested the solidity of Songhai garrisons. Other peoples living near the Senegal River basin also watched for any weaknesses to seize territories or pillage caravans. This forced the emperor to maintain a large and well-equipped army, which was not always compatible with an already strained budget. In parallel, the commercial landscape was changing. From the late 15th century, the Portuguese, followed by other Europeans, settled on the West African coasts. They established trading posts, drawn by the potential of the slave trade, but also by the prospect of sourcing gold and precious commodities without crossing the Sahara. Gradually, coastal kingdoms entered this Atlantic trade network, reducing dependency on trans-Saharan routes. Of course, caravan trade did not collapse overnight. The demand for salt and gold in the Maghreb remained high. Nevertheless, the arrival of maritime competitors led some merchants to bypass traditional circuits, which slowly eroded Songhai's profits. In total, the combination of these factors, dynastic quarrels, centralization difficulties, economic crises, religious tensions, and external rivalries, significantly weakened Songhai. Caravanners crossing the empire reported in their accounts the rise of insecurity on certain routes and the lack of political unity in Gao. Although Songhai remained a formidable power in the 16th century, it gradually lost its internal solidity and saw its prestige tarnished by instability. The prosperity inherited from the time of Askia Muhammad Touré had not disappeared, but it was increasingly unequally distributed. While large cities maintained a certain commercial and cultural dynamism, the countryside suffered more from climatic hazards and increased tax pressure due to wars. The imperial power struggled to maintain a unified image, each succession quarrel resulting in purges, banishments, and a weakening of the state apparatus. In the last decades of the 16th century, while the Songhai Empire weakened under the effect of internal rivalries and economic challenges, an unexpected actor was about to knock at its doors: Morocco, governed by the Saadian dynasty. North of the Sahara, Sultan Ahmed al-Mansur, nicknamed the Golden, harbored great military ambitions. He needed gold to finance his foreign policy, which aimed to contain Ottoman influence in North Africa and compete with European powers on the Mediterranean scene. Learning of the existence of immense gold resources south of the Sahara, he devised an audacious plan to seize the territories of Songhai, renowned for their gold deposits and control of caravan routes. To successfully carry out this project, al-Mansur meticulously prepares his expedition. His army, placed under the command of Pasha Juder, benefits from a decisive asset: the use of firearms, still rare in sub-Saharan Africa. The Moroccan soldiers, among whom are European mercenaries, Spanish, Portuguese, and some renegade Turks, are equipped with arquebuses and light cannons. This firepower disrupts the military balance in the region. The traditional cavalry and the rudimentary weaponry of the Songhai cannot compete with the deadly projectiles fired from a distance. Besides the strategic considerations, the Saadians count on the gold of the Songhai to consolidate their treasury. They also hope to impose a monopoly on trans-Saharan trade by controlling key cities like Timbuktu and Djenne. Gunpowder, scrap metal, and strict organization. This is the recipe they deem necessary to overcome a weakened empire. At the same time, the Songhai Empire is going through a period of uncertainty. The successors of Askia Muhammad I struggle to maintain unity. Succession disputes, court intrigues, and rivalries between military leaders and ulamas undermine the efficiency of the central government. The emperor in place, Askia II, is not lacking in courage, but he inherits a state plagued by internal dissensions. The distant provinces sometimes hesitate to respond to mobilization calls, while the coffers are not as full as they were during the Golden Age. On the military level, the majority of the Songhai troops still rely on ancestral methods: bows, spears, swords, and especially a heavy cavalry renowned for its bravery. But despite its impressive mass, several tens of thousands of warriors according to some estimates, this force remains vulnerable to the Moroccan infantry equipped with firearms. The few advisors at the Songhai court who sense the magnitude of this danger struggle to convince the military elite to question ancestral tactics that had been effective against the region's traditional enemies. In 1590, the Moroccan army sets out. Guided by scouts familiar with the Sahara tracks, the soldiers cautiously cross the desert stretches. The journey is not without difficulties: lack of water, extreme heat, sporadic attacks from nomads. However, Pasha Juder manages to maintain the cohesion of his expeditionary force and soon reaches the outskirts of Songhai territory. Faced with the threat, Askia II chooses to gather his troops near Gao in order to protect the capital and block the invaders' route. He sets up his camp at Tondibi, a locality near the Niger River, offering what he considers favorable terrain for the cavalry. It is there that, on March 12, 1591, the fate of the Songhai Empire will be decided. According to accounts of the time, the Songhai army aligns several tens of thousands of men, primarily cavalry and infantry, who are little or not accustomed to firearms. The officers from Gao rely on a psychological impact. the sight of a massive army, supported by heavily armed cavalry, has often been enough to make their enemies retreat in the past. Opposite, Pasha Juder commands only a few thousand soldiers, but they possess arquebuses, cannons, and superior tactical know-how in modern warfare. The European mercenaries and former Turkish renegades, skilled in handling firearms, provide a formidable efficiency to this smaller force. On the morning of March 12, 1591, Askia Ishak II orders a frontal assault. It is a massive cavalry charge, supported by infantry armed with bows and spears. In West African military history, such a tactic has often been successful. The enemy, taken by panic, can be overwhelmed by the fierce initial shock. However, this time, the surprise is significant. The Moroccans, with light cannons and rows of arquebusiers, unleash a heavy barrage. The bullets and grape shot pierce the Songhai ranks, sowing immediate confusion. According to an anecdote reported by some chronicles, the Songhai even attempt to use herds of oxen pushed to the front line, hoping to disrupt the Moroccan formation. However, the noise from the firearms causes the animals to panic, and they either scatter or turn on their own masters. This strategy, legendary or real, illustrates the astonishment of the Songhai army, faced with a technology they do not master. The battle quickly turns to the advantage of the Moroccans. The arquebus fire decimates the Songhai archers, unable to retaliate from a distance. The cavalry, deprived of the element of surprise, find themselves unseated by the smoke and the violence of the explosions. In a matter of hours, the confrontation results in a rout. Askia Ishak II and his top officers must flee to avoid capture. Many chiefs fall on the battlefield or drown trying to cross the Niger. Tondibi becomes the symbol of a stinging defeat for the Songhai. As soon as victory is secured, the Moroccan army marches on Gao. The capital, which no longer has solid defenses, is taken without much resistance. The troops of El Mansour then seize Timbuktu, the famous intellectual and commercial city, emptied of part of its elites who fled the violence. Many Moroccan accounts of the time emphasize the extraordinary wealth they discover in these Sahelian cities. Gold, salt, precious fabrics, rare books, all arouse wonder and covetousness. For the Songhai, it is the beginning of an accelerated collapse. The provinces take note of the defeat and are reluctant to recognize the authority of an emperor in flight. Askia Ishak II, retreating to the south, and Djenne, desperately seeks to rally forces, but the initial momentum was broken at Tondibi. The local chiefs, often more concerned with protecting their lands, no longer follow a central power they deem irreparably weakened. The Moroccans do not stop at Timbuktu. They continue their advance towards Djenne, another jewel of trans-Saharan trade. Without a real army to face them, they subdue a large part of the heart of the empire. However, the occupation quickly proves more difficult than expected. The distances, the heat, the hostility of some tribes, and the complexity of the terrain make the management of these new territories costly in men and resources. Despite everything, Moroccan authority is imposed by appointing local pashas who settle in strategic cities and take their share of the trans-Saharan trade. Moroccan chronicles often testify to the soldiers' astonishment at the vastness of the Sahel. Some authors report their surprise at the vast spaces, the harshness of the climate, and the relative sophistication of cities like Timbuktu or Gao. On the side of the local scholars, the fear caused by the arquebus is vividly expressed. They sometimes compare this weapon to divine thunder. Its effects are so devastating and unknown in the region's military tradition. Some manuscripts transcribed much later also recount the stupefaction and feeling of injustice experienced by the Songhai populations, who suffer lootings and abuses. The vanquished, who never perceived the Moroccan threat in all its magnitude, sometimes consider this defeat a divine punishment linked to the incessant quarrels at the top of the state. The Battle of Tondibi in 1591 marks a decisive turning point. The Songhai Empire, once a pillar of the Sahelian region, will not recover from this fatal blow. The disappearance of the Songhai Empire as a unified political power does not put an end to the cultural and commercial dynamism of the Sahel, but it opens a period of fragmentation and local rivalries. In the years following the defeat at Tondibi, Morocco installs pashas in Timbuktu and other strategic centers, hoping to control trans-Saharan trade and seize mineral wealth. However, the Moroccan occupation faces the vast expanse of the territory and the resistance of local chiefs who take advantage of the general weakening to assert their autonomy. Attempts to establish a new empire in Djenne in the Niger Loop never succeed in restoring the cohesion of the past. Over the decades, the region therefore fragments into independent kingdoms and sultanates. Fulani and Tuareg confederations emerge on the Sahelian fringes, while in the south, political formations like the Bambara or the Makaina Kingdom take a more local rise. This political recomposition, far from being instantaneous, takes place in a context where trans-Saharan trade is already beginning to face the growing competition from maritime exchanges with Europe. Despite this fragmentation, the intellectual heritage of the Songhai persists. Great families of scholars preserve and reproduce manuscripts, thus perpetuating the learned tradition of Timbuktu and Djenne. Caravans, though fewer in number, continue to cross the desert, ensuring a partial circulation of goods and ideas. Beyond its collapse, the Songhai Empire bequeathed several remarkable innovations to universal history. First, it demonstrated that an extensive and efficient administration could be established in an ostensibly hostile environment, thanks to a skillful balance of centralization and delegation to local powers. Its system of provinces, entrusted to governors close to the ground, already foreshadows some modern administrative models. The intensive exploitation of the Niger River as a communication route, with a powerful river fleet, illustrates the importance of adapted military and commercial infrastructures, a principle that will be found in many river civilizations around the world. Culturally, the Songhai continued the tradition of great Sahelian universities, such as Sankore in Timbuktu, where the copying and translation of manuscripts already resembled a veritable research center ahead of its time. This intellectual fervor, fueled by interactions with North Africa and the Middle East, anticipates the global scientific exchanges that would multiply in the modern era. At the very heart of its disappearance, the Songhai Empire reminds us that no civilization, no matter how powerful, is immune to political and technological upheavals. But it also proves that the impact of a great culture survives long beyond its decline.